Welcome and to another edition of the Umoja Circle. My name is Keith Smokey Johnson, and along with my Rafiki as a Keith Swahili friend, Derek Williams, we'd like to welcome you to another discussion, actually a part two. This is part two of a discussion that we started on the last show on this topic right here, critical race theory. And I hope when you watch the first part, you'll understand why we're excited to talk about the second part. But before we continue on this topic, I just want to just leave that up there for a minute, that who we are as on this show. We are both African-centered in our thought process, and this is an African-centered talk show, which purpose is to correct errors where errors are found and to introduce facts where we find that so many people are working on fiction when it comes to who we are as people of African descent. We know that the media gets things wrong, but we also understand that the media gets things wrong sometimes deliberately. and it's only through dialogue like we are having, then there could be a shift in consciousness. And the purpose of everything that we say and all the shows that we've talked about, including this topic that we're going to be delving back into, we just came up for air on from the end of the last one, and we're diving back into it in the beginning of this show, is to make a shift in consciousness and speak truth to power. Okay, and we'll start off with who came up with this idea. Not the words critical race theory, but who came up with this idea, and it's the brother, Harvard professor, Dr. Derek Bell. And this person here saw, let me give a statement that kind of sums up how he was thinking when he came up with this. He said, it appears that many my worst fears have been realized, which he was a civil rights lawyer, and he dealt with law and he was part of the NAACP when they were fighting for all the rights during the 60s and 50s. So he was right there in the midst of all this. He saw all the laws that were passed. We have made progress in everything, yet nothing has changed. He saw that Brother Williams here said the process has not changed in how we function as people of African descent. We're still marginalized. We're still shoved into certain areas. We're still looked at as a threat if you're young, black, and male. Black women are the most penalized in the sense of at the bottom of the social scale, even beneath white women. Our mortality rate for our children are still high. There's a lot of issues that affected us as enslaved people that still affect us as people who got their citizenship by the 14th Amendment in 1868. This is 2022, and we're still talking the same thing about voting. We're still talking the same thing about criminal justice. That's what he means. We've made all these progress on books called laws, yet nothing seems to have changed. Brother
I think that's
Williams?
A profound statement. I'd like to make an editorial edit. I referred to Dr. Bell as Dr. Williams during our first program. Maybe that's because of my over-identification with him. I don't know.
You see what he sees.
But, yes, absolutely.
Be a critical thinker, man.
And when you spend a large portion of your life working with people in the area of race relations, you see things that the average person doesn't see. And one of the things that would always come up in classroom instruction when people felt comfortable enough to say, all of that is good, but what's really going on is I'm afraid that if you get to a particular point in life in terms of equity, that you'll do to me what I did to you.
That fear, yeah.
And so that basic fear is always endemic and part of the pushback. And as we said in the previous program, as we look at the most recent contemporary issues that have occurred in our nation, you see that backlash. And the critical race theory, I think, at least allows us to systematically see how everything is connected. Now, we can reject the term CRT, and the rejection comes out of you not knowing what the hell CRT
Thank
is.
you. Exactly.
Okay?
Which most people don't.
You know, like anything, we fear what we don't understand.
Yeah.
But in this case, one of the most egregious moves that has been made in America is to take a theory that really was intended to harmonize and give us stability and turn it into, like Smokey said, the boogeyman, okay? The boogeyman. Here a group of people that was 256 years without a payday and then another 150 years of Jim Crowism, a system where everyone comprised and made up that system worked together to suppress people who look like me. And then we get to a point in history where we say, hey, let's take a look at the causation of those things.
The late 60s,
and people
early
push
70s.
back and say, we don't want you talking about something, not even to the point that it makes me uncomfortable. Well, let me tell you about discomfort. 256 years and another 150, 400 years. That's discomfort. And yet the audacity, the arrogance for a group of people to say, how dare you make little Johnny uncomfortable? It shows you how far we have come. For every 2 steps forward that we have taken, how many steps we have drifted back in 2022. And that's the point that Smokey is trying to make. And so I think as we examine the theory, the theory exists in all aspects of our life. All he did was codify it. Okay?
Exactly.
There's nothing new about what he's talking about.
We've talked about it as black people since we weren't stupid people that came off those ships.
Yeah, we didn't just fall off the back of a truck.
When we were sitting in the background and when the founding fathers were discussing the forming of the Constitution, when they had their dinners and their little cocktail, well, there was no cocktails then, but they had their little luncheons or whatever their tater-tates. Around them were, as part of the furniture, because we were property, were black people.
Yes.
Even though we might have dressed and had our own little hair with the wigs and stuff like that to blend into the atmosphere, we were listening.
Yes.
And when we went to our slave quarters or our part of the city that were allowed, even if it was in northern cities, we discussed these things.
Yes.
You didn't have to read and write to think.
We saw the contradictions.
Always. And it was every day for us. It wasn't every now and then for us. It was every day for us.
And with any contradiction, you basically come up with a theory about why something has happened.
Thank you.
Okay? And that's the root of the whole topic. A reflection, this is an accumulation of reflection of the things that impacted on us and impacted on others. Because you got to remember, while you're looking out of the window, somebody's looking in. Okay?
Exactly.
So we're all victims. We're all victims. White people are victims to walk around and think that they're better simply because the color of their skin.
And that is something that did not come out of natural law.
No.
Absolutely. Even though they have written stuff like that, and you hear the mythology
did not come out of natural law.
Saying that today you got some of these white groups who believe, or did you have the eugenics movement, which we should talk about in another show during the early part, in which they think that
be a good topic.
Yeah, that eugenics was some kind of real thing, which was a false thing. It ended up with what happened in Germany and the concentration camp. But again, we'll talk about it in another show. But you do these, white America has been doing this mental gymnastics trying to justify a reality of history.
Cutting a square peg to fit a round hole.
And you don't want to hear historical memory because black people have our own way of expressing our experience.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
And it's only been since the 60s and the 70s that we are able to talk about it in public arenas, Black History Month, and stuff like that. And that's the grab bag that they're trying to throw into this critical race theory myth that they created and throw it into that bag, all the things that makes white Americans uncomfortable. And it plays to that kind of uncomfort for those who are, whether they like it or not, whether they know it or not, benefit from a system that was created
Absolutely.
based on the color of their skin.
Absolutely, and the process that has occurred, keep in mind, viewing audience, that this is not the first time. You know, the Rodney King incident, affirmative actions. You essentially, Barack Obama being elected, okay?
Pushback.
You see epic. It's almost like we woke up and said, "Hey, you know what? That kind of gaining on us, okay?" And those are the concepts that take root when you're dealing with untruths, because people end up justifying behavior, justifying the thousands of acres that they have as though they worked hard for it, when it wasn't nothing but an affirmative actions plan. Okay, and so let's not talk about that.
246
and if
years
you
of
marry, you
affirmative
can
action,
we'll pay you for as many slaves that you have. Those kind of concepts that took root in our country, and then we reach a point where the country is literally burning up and say, we got to take a closer look at this. And you see the pushback from a greater standpoint. This is 2022.
Yeah.
Listen to the discussion on mainstream media. And even the mainstream media publicists don't have a definition of critical
They're
race
making it up
theory.
as they're going along. And that's the thing that you should be concerned if you're black and white and believe in
Yes.
democracy.
Speak on.
Because democracy is being threatened by these neocons.
on. Yes.
Because in order to maintain this type of white supremacist hegemony that's been around, you have to control people.
Absolutely.
And if you got to control people, there got to be laws that are, you got to understand that the Nazis came into power by the vote.
Yes. Yes.
They came into power by the laws that were passed and were allowed to pass.
Yes.
They convinced a whole lot of German population that somehow they were superior.
Yes.
And look what happened to Germany 4 years. But the difference between Germany and America, Germany after World War II had this law that says we're going to face our truth.
Yes.
Right now, they call it denazification. Don't listen to me, look it up. In which nothing that had anything to do with the Nazis was allowed to be expressed. In fact, if you go to Berlin today, you will see monuments to the Holocaust. You're going to see monuments to the trauma that German people did to other people. Yes. They're facing the uncomfortable truth, like you always say.
Well, and
we haven't done that in America
You're
yet.
absolutely right, Smokey. And also in South Africa, people look at the progress that they've made there, the reconciliation movement, the examination
America
of why we got to where we're at. But as you pointed out, Smokey, one of the things that I think that separates us from a lot of other nations is that this country was built upon the institution of slavery.
Thank you.
Okay, and the wealth that you see today came about
from our black
through
soil.
that. So the justification of that, the notion that I am not willing to give up on those advantages, is very much part and parcel of the personality structure of people in this country, and that's what separates us. That's the major distinction that we see with Americans here, because slavery lasted longer here than it did any other place.
Do you know, brothers? Do you know, again, going back to the Germans, when they were a small little fringe group, like the Republicans, the neocons who are in power now, who are far right, they tried to they wanted to establish the right laws that would convince the German population of their ideology, the white supremacy ideology. Guess who they looked at for the types of laws that would be palatable to the German people?
I wonder who.
Yeah, they looked to the United States and how we segregated the Native Americans, how we created segregation laws.
Yes.
But guess what? They found them too harsh. You know what I mean? What I'm saying, they said that we could convince our people that you can't even look out the same window if you're black and white. how can we do that? You know, they'll laugh at us.
Yes.
We couldn't just say we have white water.
Yes.
What I mean by white water, you know that by segregation laws, how ridiculous some of these laws were. You could not go to a white beach and and then dip your feet into the water in the white beach. That's the white water. In fact, in 1919, a young black boy somehow ended up in a white beach area in Chicago, dipped his foot, waded into the water in front of that beach, and he was stoned to death. And then that started the great 1919 race riot in Chicago. Because a young teenager waded into white water. When the Germans saw that kind of crap, and it wasn't that these people were crazy, they were following laws, segregation laws that America had. And this is what a lot of white Americans don't want to face when we speak about how we feel as people living, what you said, 400 years under a system like that.
And on that score, Smokey, I think that a discussion has to be made for a group of people who the very embodiment of their color shapes and frames the laws that we see in this country. The whole concept of driving while black, as pointed out, A, you were driving a car, B, you were black, and C, the chances of you being stopped because of the very nature of your color is greater than someone who's not black. Now, when those concepts are integrated into law itself, where people make those distinctions, when people make those choices based on the mere color of someone's skin, and then turn around and say, and don't you mention this topic in any shape, form, or fashion. I mean, you got some schools don't even want to talk about Martin Luther King.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Okay?
They're throwing all that in the
let's burn the books.
CRT black.
And if it doesn't frighten you, audience, if it doesn't frighten you, white Americans, then I'm telling you that like those nations that didn't survive, where their democracy finally deteriorated, if these conditions don't make you scared, don't frighten you when you look at your grandchildren and ask, what is the future going to look like? When you can't even discuss the topic of race and you destroy innocent books that,
this is happening right now. You hear with the critical race theory banning books and going to school meetings and threatening teachers because we're teaching. They're just throwing in anything that has to do with our memories,
threatening their lives, Smokey.
Yeah.
We know where you live.
Yeah.
Imagine, because you bring up a topic of the racial history, and if little Johnny feels discomfort, and I can tell you something as a behaviors, discomfort is a motivator for bringing about change, okay? When the dog that sits on the nail and continues to howl, and you wonder why that dog is howling, because it's still sitting on the nail, okay? When you get up off the nail, the pain will subside, and we can move on with healing. But when you constantly reject the whole idea of discussion, I'm telling you the predictability of the future. Hey?
You don't have to have a crystal ball, brother.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
And if you're not raising hell, if you're not motivated to cross differences and speak to someone like me, if you're not interested in getting groups together,
critical thinking,
to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of laws, past and present, is very important. Disparate treatment. You don't have to have an act of discrimination for the recriminations of what occurred 20 years ago to impact on you today. You mistreat a child without medical and therapeutic treatment, it's going to express itself later in life.
Yep.
And we're getting to the point, you all, where we're saying it's okay, but don't you dare make little Johnny uncomfortable.
Did the German children after World War II kill themselves or freaked out? They're adults now.
Oh, no.
They're healthy because they talked about the Japanese children. Look at Japan.
Yes.
It got an atomic bomb dropped on it, and their soldier
Economically,
class.
one of the giants of the universe.
Yeah, became did horrible things in World War II in the Pacific.
Yes.
We're friends with Japan.
Yes.
They're healthy. We're still dealing. We still got congressmen and who are trying to stir the pot and trying to bring back the Confederate flag.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Germany don't have anything Nazi, no Nazi statues of Himmler or anything. We still fighting over Confederate generals who betrayed this country.
And I want you to understand when Smokey says that we understand. The Confederate flag and other symbols are symbolic of a disposition. Okay, when you see those symbolic statements, it speaks to where people are in their heart, in their mind.
Thank you.
Okay? And these symbolisms are short-term ways of expressing that.
Yep.
When you don't have the intellect, well, I can wave the damn flag. And it's full of implications. So understand, this is not a discussion of just intellectual fun and games. What we're talking about has real-world ramifications and impact on our nation as a nation. Okay?
Historical memory provides a backbone to stories the people tell of themselves. That's what he's saying. It provides a backbone. Good,
Yes.
our history, what we
Yes.
need to heal ourselves, or bad, what America, white America, did to people that look like us.
Yes.
We have to face that historical truth.
We have to.
And for those of you who say, "Well, I had nothing to do with that. That happened back then." All this, you've heard that kind of rationale. My parents weren't slaveholders. That was 200 years ago. Let me ask you this: look at America as an old house, okay, a 200-year-old house. If you move into, say, Prince William, or what's the King William's area in San Antonio, their old plantation house. Now, if you didn't build a house, if the framework is crooked or the wiring is frayed, would you just live in that house with those bad conditions? You didn't build it. You didn't put the framework crooked. You didn't do anything that built that house, but you have to take care of it since you were given that house or as a will.
Good analogy.
We were given America the way it is, people.
Good analogy.
White America, your ancestors built this house that causes the problems that we exist today. And if the inspectors, critical race theory, Dr. Bell, black people like Brother Williams and myself are telling you this is what needs to be fixed, and you ignore it, then you're wondering, like he said, why that house is going to be falling apart around you. Why it's not going to be working if you don't update it.
It's an excellent analogy, Smokey, and a lot of times you have to use analogies like that to break through the intellectual barriers that we have when we talk. And so that's what I like about how he can use those analogous situations to help us make sense out of what we're looking at. And I want to say, because it's obvious you can feel the fervor. It's an emotional topic. It should be an emotional topic.
If you're black in America, yeah.
But this country's future is going to require the cooperation of both white and black and all of the other indigenous groups, some of them on probation to be white, okay?
Wow.
And the other groups that benefit in neighborhoods and make their wealth out of living off those past conditions. I want you to understand that while you may hear that fervor, we also are cognizant and recognize that it's going to take a dual cooperation between both black and white and all others to get it right. And so, yes, you may, there may be something frightening. It seems that whenever a black person raises the octave of their voice, you got to watch out. Well, it's an emotional response that you need. We think with our brain and our stomach, affective.
When you say a thing over and over again, your voice will raise eventually. And the thing is, I've learned through my studies that you can put all the facts in front of a person, eyes, right? Mm-hmm. Come up with all kind of logical stuff. That's what the intellectuals tend to do.
Yes.
But if the mind behind those eyes are closed, then it doesn't matter what you put in there.
Yes, absolutely.
The mind behind white America has been closed for hundreds of years.
Yes. to protect the benefits. Okay, yeah, I'm not ready to get up.
We
got to
face this truth.
Yes.
They have been closed for hundreds of years, and that's what you see frustrated in but black men and black women are dying in the meantime.
Yes.
That's the frustration. I could be driving in San Antonio today as a black man, and I have this cop with a mind that is closed, but is seeing the mythology of a threatening, and I could be shot for just moving my hands.
Yes.
Because it's been ingrained in the culture.
And there's a belief that something's wrong with the person and not the laws.
The people, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
And one of my closing comments is I want you to understand that there's a narrative here. And when you build this narrative around something's wrong with the individual as opposed to the system, it limits your ability to do the proper analysis because you're caught up in this systemic kind of explanation.
Systemic racism, that's what it means, the system.
And it requires interaction, it requires groups coming together, it requires wrestling, it requires the painful reality that all birth requires pain.
And just removing an exterior issue, like a lot of times we get these things that just remove certain superficial laws.
Yes.
You know, now we just got this lynching law, anti-lynching law passed, okay? And that's supposed to make us feel safer in America. In government and everybody white. Look.
Good example.
But to me, it's like telling an alcoholic, just move that beer that's in front of you into the next room. Okay, now
but know it's there.
But now you're healed.
Yeah.
Now you're healed.
Again, another excellent analogy. It's analogous, brother.
And that's what we're facing as people of African descent. Every day when we talk to white America, we have been loyal to this country since 1776. And that's when it was in America. We were still dealing with it prior 100 and something years before that. Since 1619, we have invested our blood and sweat into this country.
Well said, Smokey.
You know, we just got a few minutes on this topic, so we might need to go and continue this topic if that's what you want. But for now, this is what we see. Critical race theory has nothing to do with the lie that you're being told by people like Ted Cruz and all these other white right-wing neocons who are trying to have power. Vote them out this November. They are a threat not to just black people, but to white America too. This is what this is about, what they bring to the table. So until next time, vote. Peace. Hotep. Bye-bye.